Hello and welcome to the Intelligent Gentleman podcast. I am your host, Milt Walker, and today we're kicking off season 3, episode 2, and we're going to be talking about, as you can see from the screen, reflection, and what that means in a lot of different ways, but mainly speaking about what it means in two specific ways. And so, as everyone knows, the word reflection means light or sound being bounced off of a surface, right? That is the technical meaning for it, but there is a philosophical meaning for it. And so that's what we're going to be talking about, but we're going to be able to break that down into a couple of parts. And that's going to give us what we're talking about today in our podcast. First off, let me say thank you all for your continued support. I really appreciate you. Don't forget to go to the YouTube page, subscribe, like, share, and and you can find that on my Instagram page, and in a link to anywhere that this video is shared. Definitely, I'm looking for your support, and I'm looking forward to doing this and sharing my light with everyone, and also looking for feedback. I want you guys to start, commenting and having this discussion with me and giving me your thoughts, and that way I can integrate that into the podcast. So without further ado, let's move on and get right into it, because it's gonna be a lot to talk about, but we're not going to take up too much of your time today. Okay. So what is reflection, right? What is reflection? We talked about the technical meaning of it. Let's talk about the philosophical meaning, right? So as you can see, it's serious, and if you're listening to this, you can't see it, so I'm going to read it out as well. Serious thought or consideration. That's what reflection is. Some people take their time and give careful thought to things that matter to them, which is their process of reflection. And when it comes to reflecting and being observant and astute and a student of life in yourself, patience and being able to take your time to really try to understand something is always recommended. And that's because we've talked about this in past episodes, when we're talking about things like knowledge, wisdom, understanding, we're talking about infinite principles. These things are infinite. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, you're going to have the end all be all of the understanding, right? So you definitely want to make sure that you are doing what you need to do to get to the understanding that's coming to you. And I'm a very avid believer that whatever is for you will come to you. So when you allow time and space for yourself to reflect on the things that are, as it says, that matter to you or are important to you, it allows time for that infinite source to come in and give you what it is that you need. Okay. So that's what reflection is. And if you guys have any comments or questions, definitely make sure to put it into the chat, and I'll come back around and we can start a conversation. Okay. The next part that we're going to be talking about, which is breaking reflection down into two distinct parts, right? We're going to break it down into two distinct parts. Okay. So what are those parts, right? The first part is reflection of self, which is introspection. Okay. The first part of the reflection of self is introspection. Okay. What is introspection? Introspection is the examination or observation of one's own mental and emotional processes. I'm going to read that one more time. The examination or observation of one's own mental and emotional processes. That's introspection. When you look within yourself to see how you are mentally and emotionally processing anything, that is introspection. You are taking time to do introspection, which is a very powerful tool. It's a very powerful tool. That's why, in the mental health arena, area, a lot of times it's very recommended for you to do a lot of introspection. Again, until you're able to set a precedent, until you're able to set a guideline for who you are in any particular moment, instance, experience, you're not really going to know. So whenever you have those new experiences, those new feelings, those new thoughts, it's good to introspect, to think about, or to examine, how does this make me feel? What do I think about when I go through this, or when I see this, or when I, whatever the case may be. Again, you can, stretch it out over a wide range of things, but it's always going to point back to, how do I feel about it? And this is a very powerful practice, because what it helps you to do is it helps you to find your own inner voice, your own inner self, that helps you determine who you want to be, and not based off of how others perceive it, right? Because a lot of times we can, do the, I don't want to call it a mistake, but we can do the short route of taking someone's thoughts and feelings about something and allowing that to be our truth about it, right? But when you take time to introspect about how you feel and what you think about it, it's not always going to align. It's not always going to align. And that's okay. Again, this is a great exercise for finding out who you are, finding out self, right? Self-awareness, self-realization, being able to understand who you are, why you do certain things, why you react to certain things, all types of things. And once you can identify that, right? Once you can identify those things, or the root causes within yourself of those thoughts and feelings, then you can start to create or manifest something either different, or manifest that into your existence, into your surroundings, into your life, right? Because that's what it's all about. It's about knowing your power, knowing your true power, and being able to activate that. But in order for you to know your power, keyword your, you have to know you. You have to know who you are on a very fundamental level, because otherwise because if you strip away the layers that society lays on you, then you're able to see what's left, what truly resonates with you, right? And some of those things may be in alignment with what society says or does, and that's fine. I mean, once you have peeled away the layers and you find that, yeah, I do agree with this. This is part of the core of who I am. Then you can move from there into the next step, which is expressing that in your own unique way, right? So introspection is a very powerful tool, very powerful tool. And it's something that you should practice often. And, my advice is, because a lot of times, when we're in the midst of talking and doing things with each other, a lot of times you feel like you don't have time to do that. So the main thing that you have to realize is that, that is a self-defeating thought. You're telling yourself that you don't have time to think about what you think about something, right? Or to think about how you feel about something, which is how a lot of times we acquire or assimilate these things from other people, because we don't want to take the time to actually think about how we feel and how we think about something. We just say, okay, well, it sounds good, but let's go with that, right? And you see it so much on the internet, people just, kind of chime in with things without really thinking about it, right? And they do a social experiment, and people don't even realize that they're being tested in that way. But they'll post something, and in that post it will say like something that's kind of contrary to what people think, right? And in the caption it'll say something like, it'll say something like, I don't agree with this, right? But then people will look at it and start commenting automatically, saying that they shouldn't be agreeing with this, they shouldn't be posting it. But if they went and took time to read what the person said, it's actually them saying that they don't agree with it, or and that can be inverted, right? That can be something that they agree with, and people saying, oh, you should agree with this is okay. And that's all the time, that's what they're saying, but they posted something that was like playing devil's advocate, saying that they didn't believe or agree with it, right? And so, you got to be careful. So in other words, I'm just saying, you need to take time to think about what you're saying. Make sure you observe all of the input that you can, whether it be talking, whether it be, information, from whoever you're speaking with, or whatever you're reading, or, any of those things, any type of information you can get and receive from, you should take the time to actually process it before you make your own determination about it. Because sometimes you're gonna rush to your conclusion, and in doing so, you're going to be you're going to have to retract, because you didn't really take the time to think about what you were saying, and you just kind of jumped on the bandwagon. And later down the line, there's a proverb that I like to refer to. It's from a book that I read, and it just speaks about how an archer shoots an arrow. If you're not mindful of how you shoot that arrow, you can end up not hitting your target, right? So what does that mean? It means that in relationship to where you start, if you deviate from a straight line from that in any way, shape, or form, eventually you're not going to be on that straight line anymore. And that's if it's a straight line. We all know that, when you're talking about like with a true arrow, you may have to adjust, right? But the point is still valid. If you don't adjust things to maintain your goal, then you're not going to hit it. And that's just law. That's just the laws of the universe right there in place. Nobody has control over that. So it's not something that, you can change, right? But it's something that you can utilize for your benefit. You can take that time and you can actually become more aware of who you are. Therefore, you never get too far away from your goal, because you always are able to keep your heading. You're able to keep that focus on what it is that you're trying to do. So it's always good. You can say a quick check, self-check, right? Or like they said, back in my days, check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? All these things just say the same thing. So, basically it's all the same, right? Okay. So that would be the first part of reflection, right? The first part of reflection. You want to check, because you can't truly understand what reflection is unless you have a point of reference. And that point of reference should always, and there is no exception to this, it should always be you. You should always be your own point of reference. And then from there, you can establish other points of reference. But you should always start with yourself, because that's going to be more true than anything. And the good thing about that is it doesn't mean that you're not going to change, right? Because when you do change, and you will, that can change with you. Your point of reference can change with you. It may change your whole trajectory, right? It may change your end goal. You might change, people do that all the time. They end up in one field and then they end up changing to a whole different field, right? That's possible. You see what I'm saying? So that's a very simple example, but it could be something that you've been doing for years. And then because of something that changes within you, you decide, you know what? I don't even want to do this anymore. Right? I want to do something else. I want to find something else. And don't ever let anybody tell you that that's not okay, because it is okay. They're going to tell you, they're going to say, hey, stay where you're comfortable at, stay where the money at, stay where this, that, and the third at. But ultimately, you are your own and first point of reference. So you should always go with that first. And if you are introspecting and you're in tune with who you are, that's always going to be your higher self emerging, as we talked about in all of our other podcasts, right? So that's that. So that's the first part, introspection. Let's look at what the second part of this is, right? And I know some people are gonna say, hey, is that even a thing? Because I had to second guess myself as well, but I did go and find out that this is an actual thing, and it's called extrospection. It's the examination or observation of what is outside oneself, whether it is nature or other people. It is the examination or observation of what is outside of oneself, whether it is nature or other people. So extrospection is the next, or the complementary type of reflection, or the complementary aspect of reflection. After you have reflected within yourself, you reflect outside. And I'll give you a couple of examples of this, right? We've already talked about how important it is to do reflection, right? So why would it be important to reflect on what's outside of you? Well, I'm glad you asked. Think about all of the social changes that have happened in the past century. And you're probably saying to yourself, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. Okay. Not only is that a product of introspection, that's a product of extrospection as well. People observed the conditions that they were in their lives and in the lives of other people, and they came to the conclusion that it was not something that they wanted to continue to happen. So they reflected, right? But they reflected in an extrospective way. And they came to the conclusion that something needed to be changed. And therefore, they changed it, right? And that's why a lot of that change happened, right? So, and from that, you can draw a lot of examples, right? But let me give you a couple more examples. Another example of extrospection would be experiencing something for the very first time, right? When you experience something for the very first time, you want to introspect about how you feel and how you think about it. But you also want to take note of the things that you have observed about it, right? Or about them, right? When you, let's use dating for instance. If you're dating someone, you should be paying attention to what they're doing. You should be observing and examining what they're doing. And it's not to judge them. That's not why you're observing or examining what they're doing. See, we talked about the points of reference. Once you have established the first point of reference, then you establish the next point of reference, whether it is something in your environment or it is a person in your experience. So now we're talking about the extrospection side of that, right? Which would be you establishing the point of reference in of outside of yourself. So then you say to yourself, okay, what are the behaviors that this person is exhibiting, right? And you're able to actually process that in a dual way, and it creates an even better decision for you, right? Decision or process for you in whatever that you're doing, but namely when we're talking about dating. So if you look at what they do and look at how you feel about it, right? And of course, conversation is all going to be a part of this, right? You're going to be drawing that information from them via conversation, or you're going to be observing them. And you're going to come to the conclusion, okay, is this person, a good fit for me? A good fit for my life? A good fit for the things that I got going on, my goals, my dreams, a good fit for who I am, right? And then you're going to say to yourself, yeah. Or you're going to say to yourself, no, right? Which allows you to be able to articulate that and to say to them, hey, you're a great person. I just don't think that we're a good fit, right? And if everybody is doing this, right, if everybody is looking at themselves and looking outside of themselves, that in itself is going to be something that you're going to become aware of. Either it's, and if they have, a misconception about something, you'll be able to clarify it. But if it's not a misconception and it's a part of you, you can say, hey, you know what? You're right. I appreciate you letting me know that. And now that I know that, now I can continue on with my life, right? I can continue on, and in this particular example, I can continue on by dating someone else who may be a better fit, right? And as long as we can be honest with each other and honest with ourselves, it can create a very healthy way of processing these things in dating, okay? So that's another example, right? Another example I wanted to talk about, because it's something that I'm just really interested in, in general, and I always have been, is martial arts, right? One of the key features in a lot of martial arts is that it was observed from nature. Whatever initially started the the practice of it was observable in nature. They observed it. That's why they have those different styles that are based off of, the animals. They have styles that are based off of elements. They have styles that are based off of all kind of things, right? And we're talking about every type of martial arts, not even just kung fu or karate or, Korean style, not just any one particular type. You can apply this to all of them because they observed something, whether in Japan, whether it's sword fighting, fighting with a, with a katana, and being able to, do that effectively, through experience and observing nature, right? They were able to come up with a system. Okay, so now let's talk about that for a second, because this blooms into a very large topic that I want to talk about just briefly. So because they were able to do that, because they were able to take what they observed, right, and then perform introspection, right, they were able to create a system that made or had the same result when applied over and over and over again. Okay. Now this method, and this has been said in many different ways by many different people over thousands of years, but which means that you can develop a system if you observe closely enough, right? You can develop a system that can create something or perform something that hasn't been done before in the way that you express it uniquely through your own experience. Okay. So that's a big topic, though. That's a big topic. So I don't want to get too deep into that one right now, because we're not going to be on here for that long. But I will say this: when it comes to, being able to develop systems and being able to manifest things, right? The reflection is a very integral part of this. It's a very integral part of this. So it's something that's worth me talking about on the podcast, for one. For two, it's worth you exploring yourself and going and researching and doing your own research and thinking about it and coming to your own conclusions. Because I never want people to just take what I say for what it is. I want you to actually, be able to, go and research it yourself and see for yourself what it is about that, right? Okay. So with that being said, moving to this last piece, thoughts. And I wanted to leave you with this just to say, meditation. Meditation is a type of reflection as well, right? Because as you meditate, you can reflect inwards or you can reflect outwards, right? But you're always in a state of making sure that you're observing something, right? Because that's what it's about. You want to observe. Meditation, you're observing. A lot of things that people, and we talked about this in past podcasts as well, people ask, okay, how do you meditate, right? And they say, well, I can't meditate because I'm always constantly thinking. Well, this is where these skills help you and help you refine who you are. Because when you meditate, you are reflecting. So you're observing or examining something. So typically where people start with that is they start with observing these incessant thoughts that they always have that they're talking about, right? They have so many thoughts. And so you can start by observing those. And it can start very simply, quite simply, just observing the who, what, where, why, and how of it, right? What is the thought? Who's in the thought? What am I feeling in the thought? Things of this nature. And so that's how you want to kind of approach that. Okay. And please, again, I'm going to ask you guys again, please like, share, subscribe, the podcast. Please, if you're listening to this on any of the major podcast platforms that I'm on, please go to my YouTube and subscribe to that and share it out so other people can take it, can check it out and and get some of this information for themselves as well. But I just want to say thank you for listening. And I look forward to talking with you again for the next podcast. I will be having a live talk in between the time that I do my podcast. And I'll be sharing that out on my social media pages, how you can check that out as well. Okay. So thank you all for supporting me. I really appreciate it. And until the next time, this is your Intelligent Gentleman saying peace.